3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Lockdown Sunbelt, your team every day. We continue our feature of Voices of the Sunbelt. Thrilled that I'm joined by Adam Witten of App State, heading into his 9th year, calling Mountaineer football. It is a big things expected this year from Sean Clark's Mountaineers. How is the team reacting thus far to being the favorite as they were preseason picked to win the East? And right now the odds are showing them to be the Sunbelt champion.
Yeah, Dave, first of all, thanks for having me on. I don't think that there was much reaction to the program and being picked to win the league. It's the expectation that they have every single season is to win the Sun Belt. Now, whether or not they have the pieces in place and are able to get it done, that's a different story, but that's the standard that they set. That's the expectation they have. They go into every season, no matter who's playing what position, who's coaching what position, or anything else that's surrounding the program. They expect to win the Sun Belt every year, and that's the standard that they have established within that culture. And so, yeah, being picked to win the league, it's good to get that respect from people around the conference. They see how much this program has built over the last couple of years when they tried to reset things after 2022. But at the end of the day, there wasn't really much reaction beyond what they normally set for themselves in terms of expectations.
And because we all have the memories of a flea, App State was playing in the Sun Belt Championship last year. It was a one-score game, and I'm sure you've had Kamani Vidal nightmares, but it was a one-score game before, the sack, fumble, touchdown return, and that was basically the end of the game, and that was into the third quarter.
Kind of a microcosm of the way most of those losses went. It kind of came down to a moment here or there. I mean, if you recall the way the first half of the season started, the Mountaineers got off to a really bad start last year, and they needed a 5-game winning streak at the end of the year to reach the Sun Belt title game. But the losses were a fluke play here, a last-second score there, a blocked field goal return for a touchdown against Wyoming, converting 4th and 20-plus for ODU to stay alive and then get the game-winning touchdown. I mean, there were just so many of these, losing in double overtime to North Carolina. So, yeah, I mean, you look at the final score, and it seems like Troy won that game handily. But like you said, in the second half, there was a tilting point moment of the game that didn't go their way, and that was just the way that their season went. Thankfully, they were able to reverse course and win some games comfortably, but also win some of these close games. I mean, one-score games tend to even themselves out at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean, that Troy game, that took a while to shake off, because that's the second time that a Sean Clark coach team has reached the conference championship game but has been unable to win it. It helped to get the bowl game win in December against Miami, but there's still a lot of unfinished business for this team this year.
And then, I mean, you didn't even mention the Coastal Carolina ball game where they're going to win and kick the game-winning field goal. Instead, there was a fumble, and Coastal ended up kicking the game-winning field goal.
Yeah. I mean, you get a breakaway play down the sideline.
Right.
Milan Tucker gets into a situation where you think, okay, they just broke the big play, and now they've got a chance to win this one in a very similar fashion that they did in 2021. And Coastal Carolina flips the script and basically beats the Mountaineers the same way that they beat them in Kid Brewer in 2021, running it all the way down and kicking a short field goal at the end to win at the gun. So, yeah, thanks for bringing that one up as well.
Sorry about that. We're talking to Adam Witten, the voice of the App State Mountaineers, Lockdown Sunbelt, your team every day. It is the voices of the Sunbelt. All right, so let's, again, go back a little bit, because let's be honest, the App State season did not get off to the best of start when, the starting quarterback gets hurt in the first 6 plays, although I think the 7th play ended up being pretty good. Joey Aguilar does not win the job out of camp, and all of a sudden he's thrusted it in there, and I think Clark told me it was a 40-yard touchdown pass. First play that Joey Aguilar came in, and Mountaineers were off and running from there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that particular play call where, he threw a touchdown to Caden Robinson on the very first snap wearing a black and gold uniform. And so I think that just goes to show you how much they were that you should buy in and how authentic they were being about, Ryan Berger won the job out of camp, but Joey Aguilar was completely capable of being the starting quarterback. We knew that going into the first game against Gardner-Webb. And so, when that happens, you don't go to a conservative playbook. You come in and you say, we know Joey's got the arm. We know he's ready for this situation because he was prepared to be the starter. He just got beat out by Ryan Berger. So you come in there and you let him go ahead and take his shot down the field, and he put up a whale of a statistical ball game in that win in their first game, and then comes out in his first start against North Carolina, and despite the double overtime loss, played about as well as you could expect somebody to play in that environment, in that type of game, in pretty paltry conditions. The weather wasn't great that day, but he and you take a team to double overtime, you had a chance to win it there at the end. So, Joey Aguilar from the very first snap has been ready for this opportunity, and now we're just really excited to see what the next step in Joey's career is going to be this year.
So while it's got to be a relief for Sean Clark to have his quarterback, there's no battle. I don't have to deal with the questions from people like me, although I love asking that question, and he knows that. But he's also concerned with, as it was shown, I need the backup quarterback, right? We saw that, with Texas State, with JMU, right? The starter got hurt, or Alonzo Barnett actually didn't play very well, a little stage fright, I think. And Jordan McLeod comes in and wins Sun Belt Player of the Year. So you may have your starting quarterback, but Sean Clark knows he may need another one. He probably will need another one because, these guys get hurt, whether it's, severely or coming out for a couple of plays.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing you had to be prepared for. Obviously, we hope that it doesn't happen. But, I mean, it wasn't that long ago when we had a guy by the name of Zach Thomas who was playing in 2018 in his first year as a starter and lit the world on fire, similar to the way Joey Aguilar did. And Zach Thomas gets hurt in a game against Georgia Southern, unable to play in the next game against Coastal Carolina. And a young man by the name of Jacob Huseman comes in, and you needed him to be your starter and go out and win you a ball game. And he did something very similar in the fourth quarter of the COVID season of 2020 against Georgia State. And so, the team's in a really good position because they went out and they got Billy Wiles from Southern Miss, who App State fans saw firsthand just what he could do as a starting quarterback. He put up that offense put up a lot of numbers and a lot of points in that game that App State ended up winning, but we saw that Billy Wiles is more than capable of leading an offense in this conference. And so, he's looked really good in camp. He's looked really good in scrimmages. We hope that he doesn't get thrust in a position where he has to play significant snaps, but we know that if something was to happen to Joey, the offense is going to be in really good hands.
Talking with Adam Witten, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Is the voice of the App State Mountaineers heading into his 9th season, calling Mountaineers football. All right, so who are the weapons that Joey Aguilar is going to be having with this year? Can't just be Aguilar is the reason that App State is the odds-on favorite to win the East and if not the Sun Belt. Who will he be handing the ball off to, and who will he be throwing to?
Yeah, I mean, Joey will be the first to tell you that he doesn't put up the numbers that he did, breaking single-season passing records without great players to which to throw the ball, or to whom to throw the ball. It starts, I think, with Caden Robinson. He was alongside Joey at Sunbelt Media Days as one of the two representatives from App State. He had a career season, double-digit touchdowns. Had a career high playing out of the slot in the bowl game, and App was in a really unique position because in the bowl game, Deshaun Davis at the slot position, Milan Tucker at the slot position. Both of those guys were heading to the transfer portal. And so they took Caden Robinson, a receiver who had played primarily on the outside, and they moved him into the slot. And he had a career game, over 100 yards receiving. And so now that appears to be his permanent position in the slot. So you put him in there where he could potentially get a lot more catches, work in the middle of that field. And then you have guys like Christian Horn, Mekhi Jackson, Dalton Stroman, deep threats, sure-handed guys, veteran receivers on the outside. Plus, you've got a first-team tight end in Eli Wilson, who App State tight ends are maybe known more for their blocking and pass protection and being very valuable in the running game. But Eli Wilson is a big-time red zone threat as well as a tight end. So a lot of different weapons in which Joey can utilize to throw the ball. Running backs, Kanye Roberts will be the top running back. Nate Noel had a fantastic career at App State. He goes on to Missouri. Kanye got the start in the bowl game. He played a lot more snaps at the end of the season. He's ready for his opportunity. He is one of the most decorated high school running backs ever in the state of North Carolina and the country. I mean, you go back, his stats are just otherworldly in terms of what he did in high school out of Wallace Rose Hill. So he'll be the starter. Anderson Castle and Amani Marshall and Mikael Haywood. You've got 4 running backs that are probably all capable of being first-string running backs at various programs. So the depth is there. And again, like quarterback, if a guy goes down or a guy's just not, maybe not, they're not feeling it with him in terms of the game plan for that particular game or how a game's playing out. They have different styles, different speeds, different strategies, guys with different skill sets that they can use in different situations. And there's really not going to be much drop off from a running back perspective either.
Talking to Adam Witten, the voice of the App State Mountaineers, voices of the Sun Belt, Locked On Sun Belt, your team every day. All right, let's flip the script, so to speak. What about defensively? Who's going to get after the quarterback for the Mountaineers?
Well, not many people got after the quarterback in their first year last year than Nate Johnson, true freshman from the state of South Carolina, and he got freshman All-America honors because he plays that outside dog position, a linebacker position that's really more of an edge pass rusher. But he has in now going through an entire winter off season, spring ball, another fall camp, summer workouts. He's gotten so much bigger and stronger, and he's just going to continue to give edge offensive linemen a difficult time in protecting the quarterback. So Nate Johnson's going to be the guy that you think of first, number 90, in terms of getting to the quarterback. But the big thing for this defense, Dave, is they've got to be better against the run. Statistically, they were not good against the running game. You mentioned what Troy did in the championship game running the football. Right. Frank Gore Jr. did the same for Southern Miss in a game previous. And North Carolina, Marion Hampton still running wild against them from what he did a year ago. So too many games where teams put up big time rushing numbers. They broke big runs, and App needed to get bigger, faster, stronger on its front. And so they've added a couple of nose positions out of the transfer portal to add some more beef and depth. It allows them to take guys that were playing the nose position, move them out to the end, like Santana Hopper and Montez Kelly. So defensive line, they've made significant improvements under new defensive line coach Eric McDaniel, who comes over from Troy. And so, yeah, that's the part. I think getting to the quarterback and their pass defense was really solid last year, but they need to make some improvements against the run, and I think they've made the changes to be able to do so.
Yeah, as much as I'd like to see everybody air it out, stopping the run is football 101. It puts the defense behind the 8 ball immediately. It's a much different scenario if it's 2nd and 8 compared to 2nd and 3 or 4, right? That sets the offense up all day long. And if you're not getting off the field on 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 4, and they're just running the ball and running it down your throat, it's got to be deflating for the players and the coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You got to be able to get off the field on 3rd down. And they got better on 3rd down. But again, it was the big plays that really doomed this team in the games that they lost. The Wyoming game was a great example. They get a pick 6, the Mountaineers do, to take the lead late in the game. Very next play, Wyoming busts off a 75-yard touchdown run. Right. And so, it was giving up way too many big plays. That got better later in the season. Once they were able to eliminate the big plays, stay on top, they were creating more turnovers. They were giving up fewer points. And then, unfortunately, they just couldn't stop the running game when they needed to against Troy. But that's where they made the biggest improvement from the first half of the year to the second half of the year. And so that's one of Scott Sloan's key pillars of a successful defense is avoiding big plays. And that's something they've got to be able to do this year.
Talking to Adam Witten, App State Mountaineers, voices of the Sun Belt on Locked On Sun Belt, your team every day. All right, so let's go back to what you said, because what you said is the same thing with a lot of teams, that the standard is to win championships. But that's the standard at App State, JMU, Marshall, Coastal Carolina, right? Georgia Southern, right? App State is not the only one to have that standard, and that's a lot of them in the East. How much pressure is it? Because it's not like App State has fallen off, right? The bottom hasn't fallen out for App State. They're playing for a Sun Belt championship last year. You said they played for the second time they've played under Sean Clark. How much pressure is on coach to actually win this thing? I mean, there is an outside shot, as crazy as it is. Texas State and App State could be undefeated when they play each other in the Sun Belt championship. Do you flip the coin when that happens on who hosts? But nonetheless, how much pressure is on Sean Clark to actually just win the Sun Belt title this year? Because that's a tall order when that's what the expectation is.
Yeah, I mean, probably no more pressure. It kind of goes back to my initial answer, Dave. It's no more pressure than he puts on himself because he's the head coach of App State, and he's the head coach of a championship-level program. And so he puts pressure on himself. I don't know if pressure is the right word, but he puts expectations and he puts that on himself, on his staff, on the team, on everybody associated with the program. And so, I mean, you could say that's a form of pressure. Yeah, he feels it all the time because he knows that all the work that they're doing, all the off-season conditioning and drills and weights and all the reps and practice and the film study and the late nights, everything is being done to win a championship. And so there's always pressure and expectation around this program. So in terms of how much pressure is on him or anybody else affiliated with this team, none more so than what they would put on themselves, just because you can't really feel anything outside because you're already setting that standard from within. And so they know what they're expected to do. They know what they're supposed to do. And so anybody else talking to them about it or bringing in noise from the outside, it's not really going to affect them because it's no different than what they're already telling themselves.
Talking with Adam Witten, voice of the App State Mountaineers, Lockdown Sun Belt, your team every day. We're doing voices of the Sun Belt. All right, so the Sun Belt, like a few years ago, has a really good shot to make a statement early, right? Texas State has Arizona State and UTSA, and App State, after starting out with East Tennessee, has Clemson. Now, I'm already jumping the gun saying that's going to be a win. And unfortunately for App State's not going to be the story because Clemson's going to be 0-2. And so that's going to get overshadowed if the game is passed Dabo by. But nonetheless, because I happen to think App State has the better quarterback. I think Joey Aguilar is better than Klubnik. The problem is Clemson may have a really good defense. So we'll see how that matches up. But again, it's Clemson, East Carolina on the road. You're hosting Liberty at home. Like the schedule, has a lot of minds, and you got to be careful with that. But at the same time, I look at that as, boy, if App State can put it together, that is an absolute great schedule to say we belong in the college football playoff.
Yeah, and I like the way you're thinking, Dave. I want to kind of just fast forward and take all of your predictions because you've already said we're beating Clemson, right, and you've said it's going to be App and Texas State unbeaten in conference play in the conference championship game. So yeah, let's just take that. Let's just fast forward to December. But no, it's the Clemson game is going to be a huge measuring stick. I mean, Clemson's a top 15 preseason program. We'll see what happens in their opener against Georgia. But that's another opportunity for App to get a quality win against a ranked program, and it means even more this year because as you've already talked about many times, you've got a chance to get the college football playoff this year if you win the Sun Belt, because the Sun Belt with all these quote unquote group of 5 conferences now having a seat at the table. The best champion from that league is going to the playoff. We know that. And the Sun Belt is as good, if not better, than any of those other conferences. So if you win the Sun Belt, you've got a chance to go. Not just the Clemson game, but East Carolina, another G5 team going on the road, another opportunity there. Home against Liberty, a team that ran the table in the regular season last year, projected to win the Conference USA again this year. So you're looking at games that will be utilized by the playoff committee in evaluating if App can win the Sun Belt. If App can win the Sun Belt, you're looking at games like that will be taken into account by the committee in terms of evaluating which group of 5 champion is going to be in the playoff. And so, yeah, the schedule is very daunting, as it is just about every year that Sean Clark has been the head coach. But you give yourself the opportunity because you're getting that strength of schedule, the opportunity for quality wins. That if you come out of that and you win the Sun Belt Conference, you're going to make a pretty strong case to being the G5 representative in the playoff this year.
I'll make another prediction: Liberty and App State undefeated. You'll be hosting game day again.
Love it. Look, like I said, let's write them all down. Let's let's take the video game sim of the season and just go on to December and let's go to the playoff. I'm good with that.
I'm sure you don't know this, but a couple of times last year, Texas State used what I was saying in the podcast in their hype videos. So let me know if you use what I'm saying in the App State hype videos for the week. It was not only once, but it was twice. I didn't even know it. It's hilarious. Let's wrap things up with Adam Witten, the voice of the App State Mountaineers. Locked on Sunbelt, your team every day. We're doing voices of the Sunbelt. The other thing about the Sunbelt this year, and I know a couple of teams may not have the best of records, okay? It's really tough to find more than 2 wins for ULM, and we'll see what Del McGee does with Georgia State doing some great things recruiting, but those things won't pay off for a couple of years. I think Georgia State and ULM you're going to know that you're going to play. You're going to know you played a tough team, right? Didn't App State escape out of a victory with ULM last year, having to kick a long field goal to win it?
Took a 54-yard field goal at the gun to win it. Yeah.
So I think ULM, again, they may not have a lot of wins, them and Georgia State, but I just don't think there's a patsy in the conference right now, and we'll see what happens with injuries. But I think those 2 teams are going to be a lot tougher to beat than what they have in the past.
Yeah, there's no easy spot on the schedule, and App saw it last year. Record-wise, they played the 2 worst teams out of the West Division last year, and those were 2 of the toughest games of the year. On the road against ULM and then home against Southern Miss. And so it doesn't matter what your record is. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's great that we have this in this conference where every game you have to be at your best to win. And, there's just a lot of unknown in this league because you got a handful of new coaches, and then once a coach leaves, all these players enter the transfer portal. And so you've got teams out there with 40, 50, 60 new players on the roster. And in a program like Georgia State, I have no doubt that they can turn things around, but the timing of the coaching transition makes it really difficult for them to be good in year one. Could they do it? Absolutely. But it's an uphill climb for year one, at least, because of the timing of when the coaching change happened. But yeah, I mean, this year out of the West, App hosts South Alabama and on the road at Louisiana, where they've had a tough time playing the last couple of trips. So plus your road games in the division are Coastal and Marshall, two rivalry games, and you close the year at Georgia Southern. So, that's the same scheduling cadence that they had in 2022 when they did not close the year well. They had to go to Marshall and lost. They had to go to Coastal and lost. They had to go to Georgia Southern and lost. And so, yeah, I love the idea that you're saying they can be 8-0 in the conference and go to the championship game, but man, it is going to be quite the path to get there, because it doesn't matter who you're playing and what their record is coming in. And in this conference, it's so deep and talented. Even if you're turning your roster over every year, you have the ability to recruit great players in this league. And yeah, it's going to be, App's going to need to be at its best every single week in order to get this thing done.
If they do win, it sounds like you think they will have earned it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Anybody that wins it is going to have earned it in this league. You're not going to back your way into a championship in this conference.
All right, one more question. The other thing I'm fascinated about is this Bob Chesney thing at JMU, because you have somebody who's been a head coach for over a decade at the lowest levels of football and has worked his way up. And then you have the new coaches with Jared Parker at Troy and Del McGee, either a coordinator or a position coach, that work their way up, through the assistant role. It'll be interesting to see on how all that plays out. Bob Chesney allegedly was going to get the Syracuse job, Syracuse, fan. So I was paying attention to that. And then all of a sudden, he gets the JMU job and Boston College comes open. And maybe he would have ended up there if that job opening came, a couple of weeks earlier. But I'm interested to see how, not being a head coach pays off for these other guys that are now being a head coach for the first time, whereas somebody's got more than a decade of experience as being a head coach.
Yeah, I think in any scenario where you hire somebody, whatever they were doing before, I think you can find good experiences and bad experiences in terms of why you shouldn't make a decision in terms of where that person was previously. If you hire somebody from the FCS ranks, there's examples on both sides. Signetti was an FCS guy.
Sure.
And made the transition with JMU and had success. They're going to try it again, pulling from the FCS ranks and see if it pays off. At Charlotte with Will Healy, it didn't work out. And so, if you hire a top-level coordinator from a school, at Troy, they hired Neil Brown, and it worked out. And after that, they hired Chip Lindsey, and it didn't work out. And so, you just never know. I mean, no matter where somebody's background is from, it's all about fit. Don't worry about necessarily as much their resume or where they've been in the country or how many head coaching jobs they've had prior. You got to have fit. And we know that it's no more apparent that at a place like App State, you have to have the right fit because it is a unique place.
Right.
And Sean Clark understands it because he played for Jerry Moore. Scott Satterfield understood it because he played for and coached with Jerry Moore and Eli Drinkwitz. He got it when he first came in, and App had a really good year when he was the head coach. And so it's just about fit. And we'll find out if these new head coaching hires are the right fit at these schools. But again, I think you can write the narrative on both sides in terms of whether you hire from FCS or whether you hire from another G5 head coach or a Power 4 coordinator. Or you just hire a guy who's been out of coaching for a while but he has a ton of head coaching experience to bring in a name that galvanizes the fan base. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't in every single example. But at the end of the day, we'll find out, regardless of somebody's resume, if it was just the right fit or not.
He's Adam Witten. He's the voice of the App State Mountaineers, heading into his 9th season calling Mountaineers football. Really appreciate your time. Voices of the Sunbelt, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Enjoy the rest of the offseason, if you will, and best of luck this year. And you know what? There's no doubt when they beat Clemson, you're going to be thinking of me.
If that happens, you will be the first person I reach out to, Dave. Thanks for having me on, and thank you for your continued coverage of the conference.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, man. Hey, I like your video graphics here. Did you design that, or did they do that?
No, they did that. Yeah, Locked On did that.
Cool. Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah, I've screwed it up, but they give us the ability.
Yeah, I think it looks good.
I think they're finally going to pay for us to do Choppity. I don't think.
What is Choppity?
Choppity is the ones that make the shorts for the reels.
Oh yeah, okay.
And the things for social media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I discovered this thing called Opus Clips, which is a good one too. It's more AI generated. You can get some free stuff in there. It'll put captions in there for you too for free.
Yeah, that's what the Choppity does. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to edit. It's not great, so you got to spend 5 or 10 minutes editing it.
Yeah. Yeah. So check that one out too if you get a chance. I've enjoyed dabbling around with that a little bit.
All right. My brother lives in DC, but he's in Chicago. So
yeah.
Are you there all week?
Till Thursday. I go back Thursday.
Oh,
so
okay.
Yeah.
So it's a long
conference starts tomorrow. Tomorrow and Wednesday are the heavy days, and then there's a little bit Thursday morning, and I'm gonna stay probably till about lunchtime and then head out.
Is the market oversaturated? Too many podcasts?
It's a ton of people here, man. It really is. I mean, and everybody's got a freaking podcast. It's wild. So, for me, like I come here, I learned some stuff while I'm here.
Sure.
I can visit with vendors, but we have some company partnerships with a couple people, a couple groups that are here, so I get a chance to meet with some of those folks, which is good. But
the guy in Baton Rouge who hosts afternoons.
Yeah.
Matt Mascona, he's been doing 20 minutes every day for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Maybe longer. Maybe since 18.
Yeah.
And he's gone from 1 sponsor to now 4.
Wow.
He's got to be making a bunch of money with that side gig. And
yeah.
Before his kid's got he's got a very sad case of special needs kid. So when he leaves, he's like, I do it 7:20, and then his kid's got to get up and go for 7:45. But
wow,
he's making some bucks just talking basically LSU and the Saints for 20 minutes every day.
Good for that guy. Good for him.
He does a good job.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. You got it. Anytime.
Be good.
All right. See you, bye.